Welcome to this explainer, where we're diving into a really transformative time for Britain, the years between 1689 and 1815. Now, this isn't just a story about kings and queens. It's about the birth of modern ideas that literally changed the UK, and you could say the rest of the world. So if you're getting ready for your Life in the UK test, you're in the right place. This stuff is absolutely essential. So here's our game plan for today. We'll start with how power dramatically shifted from the monarch to parliament. Then we'll see the laws that locked that change in place and how the UK as we know it was actually formed. After that, we'll get into the game-changing ideas of the Enlightenment and watch as Britain's empire grew and, surprisingly, shrank. And we'll finish up with a super focused review to make sure you've got all the key facts down for your test.
All right, let's kick things off with the biggest change of the entire period, the move of power away from one person, the king, and into the hands of Parliament. Honestly, this is the foundation of the modern British state. So this is the big question we're tackling, right? How on earth does a country go from being run by whatever a king decides to being run by laws that everyone agrees on? The answer to this really sets the stage for modern British democracy. You know, this huge shift in power wasn't just a handshake deal or a vague understanding. It had to be written down, made official, and turned into laws. They were building a whole new type of government, one that would end up being copied all over the world. And what they created is what we call a constitutional monarchy. It's a really clever setup if you think about it. The monarch is still the head of state, but they don't have absolute power anymore. The real boss is the law, and the law is made by Parliament. And the document that made it all happen was the Bill of Rights, back in 1689. It put some serious limits on the monarch. No new taxes without asking Parliament. No messing with the courts. But here's the kicker. Parliament got control over the money and the military. And let's be honest, whoever controls the cash and the army holds the real power. So this new system created a new job, almost by accident. The new king, George I, was actually German and didn't speak much English. So he needed someone he could trust to, run the government for him. That guy was Sir Robert Walpole. He became what we now call the first prime minister, managing the day-to-day business of the country. Okay, so while all this political drama was unfolding in London, the actual map of the country was being redrawn. We're going to look at how the United Kingdom was literally pieced together and how people moving in and out started to forge a new identity. There are two dates you absolutely have to know here. The first is 1707. That's when the Act of Union joined England, Wales, and Scotland, creating the Kingdom of Great Britain. Then jump forward to 1801. That's when another Act of Union brought Ireland into the fold, and voila, you have the United Kingdom. Now, the deal with Scotland was pretty interesting. It wasn't really a takeover. It was more like a strategic merger. Sure, the main parliament was now in London, but Scotland was smart. They made sure to keep their own separate legal system, their own schools, and their own church. And understanding that is so important for understanding Scotland's unique place in the UK today. And you can literally see this union in the flag. The famous Union Jack is basically a mashup of three different flags. You've got the English cross, the Scottish cross, and the Irish cross, all layered on top of each other. It's a perfect symbol of these different nations coming together to form one kingdom. The country was also being changed by the people. You had groups moving in like Jewish communities and French Protestant refugees, the Huguenots, who brought amazing skills in finance and making things. At the same time, you had people moving out. After a failed uprising called the Jacobite Rebellion, a lot of Scots left for a new life, especially in North America. Okay, so you've got this new political stability, you've got economic energy, and that created the perfect environment for some really revolutionary thinking. We're talking about ideas and inventions that didn't just change Britain, they lit the fuse for the Industrial Revolution and changed the whole world. This incredible burst of creativity is known as the Enlightenment. It was all about using reason and science to question everything. Instead of just accepting things because that's how they've always been done, people started thinking critically about government, about money, about human rights. It was a massive mental shift. And there were some real superstars in this movement. You had thinkers like Adam Smith, who basically wrote the instruction manual for modern economics, and philosophers like David Hume, who wasn't afraid to question authority. And then you had the inventors, like James Watt. His steam engine wasn't just a cool machine, it was the machine that powered the entire Industrial Revolution. So Britain is getting stronger, richer, and more industrialized. What does it do? It starts flexing its muscles on the world stage. But this period is full of contradictions. It includes some of Britain's most glorious victories and one of its most painful defeats. Now, here's the great irony. The very ideas that Britain had championed at home, like having a say in your own government, came back to bite them. The American colonists, who thought of themselves as British, heard all this talk about representation and said, hey, wait a second, you can't tax us if we don't have anyone in Parliament to represent us. And that argument wasn't just a friendly debate. It led to war. In 1776, the colonies went all in and declared independence. By 1783, after a tough war, Britain had to accept it and recognize the United States. For a global superpower on the rise, this was a massive, humbling blow. But while they were losing an empire in America, they were dominating in Europe. In 1805, at the Battle of Trafalgar, Admiral Nelson basically handed the Royal Navy control of the world's oceans. Then, 10 years later, in 1815, the Duke of Wellington defeated Napoleon himself at the Battle of Waterloo. That victory sealed it. Britain was now the #1 power in the world. Okay, deep breath. Let's pull all of this together. For your test, it's so important to see how all these pieces connect. So now we're just going to run through the absolute must-know names and dates you'll need to really nail this topic. This right here is your golden ticket. It's the master timeline with every key date you'll need from this period. Let's lock them in. 1689, Bill of Rights. 1707, Union with Scotland. 1745, the Jacobite Rebellion. 1776, America declares independence. And then the two massive wins, Trafalgar in 1805 and Waterloo in 1815. Got it? Good. And finally, here's your who's who. You just need to connect the name to their game. Sir Robert Walpole, first Prime Minister. Adam Smith and David Hume, the brains of the Enlightenment. James Watt, the steam engine guy. Admiral Nelson and the Duke of Wellington, military heroes. And don't forget the key migrant groups, the Jews and Huguenots who brought so much economic skill to the country. So, as you finish up, here's a final thought to chew on. The laws passed in London hundreds of years ago didn't just stay in Britain. The arguments about rights and representation that limited a king's power in England were the exact same arguments that lit the fire of revolution in America. It just goes to show you that a nation's internal rules about power and freedom can end up changing the whole world.